Hey y'all, welcome to Little Acre Homestead. My name is Rowan, and today it is finally time to get my jars onto the shelf where they belong. They can finally go home. Now, this is nowhere near all of my jars, and I've got a lot of work ahead of me, so I'm gonna get started. But let's talk about some of the plans that I have for the space. I'm so excited for the garage to be coming together. This is one of the spaces in the house that I was most excited for when we first looked at the property because it has so much potential. Now we have room for our freezer, our plant starting shelf, all these beautiful jars, storage, and more. And very importantly, Phil has his own dedicated space out here. At least he will as soon as I tackle my next big project. I drafted plans this week for building a canned food storage shelf that will go to the right of this jar shelf. It's going to be very large. It should be large enough to hold more than a year's worth of canned goods for our family. There will be space for all the different sizes of jars, and I'm working through how to label everything in a sustainable, easy to organize way. I'm so excited to share that project with you as it comes to fruition, and I really need to get it going soon because the canned goods we moved from the old house are currently covering Phil's workspace. So Phil, if you're watching this, I love you and I'm sorry. It's also important to me to finish that project because it means that I'll have a place to put up all the food I preserve from our garden. In our old house, I ran out of room for canned goods, and that meant I couldn't always preserve my harvest in the way that I wanted to. Once the shelf is built, I'll be able to can as much as my heart desires. After triple checking some math, the shelf should hold 609 pints or half pints, 450 quarts, and 105 half gallons. That's a lot of food. And I truly can't wait to do all that canning. Using these jars brings me so much joy. I've talked a lot about how I buy vintage glass whenever possible. I do that to be sustainable, but also to continue the stories that these jars tell. Some of my oldest usable jars are nearly 100 years old, and they still have many years of life left in them. It's an honor to me to be able to extend their literal shelf life, and I'm happy to pass down my love for this way of preserving to my children. I think building that shelf is going to take longer than I'm estimating. Hopefully, I'll have it built by the end of March, so if you have any woodworking tips, please put them in the comments below. Any advice is greatly appreciated. Maybe I'll record it and put some plans together for y'all to see. I'll be honest, that's all the voiceover that I planned for this video, so I think I'm just going to go back to talking about my jars and how much I love them, which is what I actually originally planned to do, but then I thought it might be better to talk about the plans for the garage and the big food shelf that I'm building. But if you've been a long-time viewer of this channel, you know how obsessed I am with vintage and antique glass. I'm always so excited to share the stories of my jars with you and talk about where they came from and the ones that I'm most interested in finding next. I feel really lucky to have the opportunity to preserve all of the antique jars that I have. I think they're so beautiful, and I love how they tell the story of the people who came before me. One of my favorite jars is a ball quart from, I think, the late 1800s or early 1900s. It has the third L on it, which is like an extra loop in the cursive logo. And the jar is so loved and so well used that the embossing has been rubbed off of the glass over the course of its life. And I can still use it for dry storage and I can still keep it on my shelf, but to see all of the love that's gone into that jar just brings me so much joy. One of my favorite things about finally getting these jars put away was that about halfway through, Alex decided he wanted to help. He has started to show interest in learning about canning and learning how to preserve food, but also wanting to know more about the jars themselves. He asks about how old they are, and he asks about why some of them are blue. And getting to share this with him is just the highlight of my day. He likes to look at them, hold them, talk about what he wants to make in them. It's definitely been a bit of a challenge for me personally, because as his mom, I want to make sure that he's encouraged to do all of that with me and also learn, of course. I want him to be able to pursue knowledge about the things that interest him, as admittedly as a collector and as a bit of an introvert. It's been tough for me to let the reins a little loose. There were a few times where he was helping me where he wasn't as gentle as I wished he would be, and making sure that, you know, he was staying safe and that things weren't getting broken was always at the back of my mind as we were putting things away. But it was a really good lesson for me, because even though he's still, you know, in the grand scheme of things, a little kid, he's very mature and gentle and cautious and careful. He understands how important these things are, and he wants to do his part to make sure that things are taken care of. Letting him hold a 100-year-old jar and put it away on the shelf by himself felt reckless to me. And I think that's just my inner perfectionist wanting to make sure that everything is under control, and more specifically under my control. Having kids will really knock that perfectionism right out of you. And I think that's for the best. He did such a great job helping me get everything organized, and it felt really good to be able to use these jars as a tool for teaching him different sizes, like pints and quarts, and teaching him about how old all the jars are and things like that. I love being able to spend time with him and share my passions with him, and someday with Judah too. I'm always grateful for the things that he does with me, and also the things he does for me. I think that parents, if they allow themselves to, learn infinitely from their children, and they are both such a blessing. Hey y'all, that's, I think, all the jars. It's quite a few. I still have all these antique jars over here, and I love every single one. There were a lot of boxes of jars, and having them all unpacked is not only a huge weight off my shoulders, but it's also one more step toward making our new house feel like home and feel like it's where we belong. I can't wait to start using all these jars again very soon for canning and dry goods and making more things to share with you from our kitchen. In the meantime, thanks so much for stopping by Little Acre Homestead and for subscribing, and I'll see you again very soon.